It's a little bit funny, this feeling inside. I'm not one of those who can easily hide. I don't have much money, but boy, if I did, I'd buy a big house where we both could live. I were a sculptor, but then again, no. Or a man who made potions in a traveling show. Anyway, the thing is, what I really mean, yours is the sweetest eyes I've ever seen. And you can tell everybody this is my song. It may be quite simple, but now that it's done, I hope you don't mind, I hope you don't mind that I put down in words how wonderful life is while you're in the So excuse me for getting, but these things I do, you see I've forgotten if they're green or they're blue. I hope you mind if I wrote down this song. It's for people like you that get me turned on. You can tell everybody this is my song. It may be quite simple, but now that it's done, I hope you don't mind, I hope you don't mind that I put down in words how wonderful life is when you're in the world. How wonderful life is while you're in the world.
Benet, Shelley Markham, and Kenneth Stewart for providing the wonderful musical introduction tonight. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kayla Avis, and I will be your host for tonight's event. While I was born and raised right here in North Carolina, my grandparents immigrated to the United States in 1962 from the Nueva Ecija province of the Philippines. My grandfather, and later my father, served in the United States Navy. I'm proud to be a Filipino American. Moments before this production went live, we heard of the tragic news of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing. She was a fierce warrior for civil rights justice, and she will dearly be missed. This election is so important for our country's future. The presidential contest with Joe Biden will represent perhaps the starkest choice between two competing visions for the nation's future since the election of 1860 that set the Union on course for a civil war. President Trump has governed in his first term as a fierce culture warrior, the divider in chief. But if Joe Biden is elected, we will restore the decency and the soul of America. Tonight's North Carolina Filipino American event is the first of its kind. Our goal is to inform you of the important issues affecting us and to energize and unite all North Carolina Filipino Americans to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in November. We will start tonight with an ecumenical, non-denominational invocation from Tess Farrer and Rob Turner. Take it away, Tess and Rob.
Success and failure ultimately have little to do with living the gospel. Jesus just stood with the outcasts until they were welcomed, or until he was crucified, whichever came first. Gregory Boyle, S.J., Tattoos on the Heart. So, a real hope is a new generation coming of age and saying, we want to live differently in our relationship to each other, in our relationship to economy, to political power. Jim Wallace, theologian and scholar. Behold how pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to live together in harmony. Psalm 133. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr.
O great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds and whose breath gives life to all the world, hear me. I am small and weak. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty and make my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you have made and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise so that I may understand the things you have taught my people. Let me learn the lesson you have hidden in every leaf and rock. I seek strength not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes, so when life fades as the fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame. Yellow Lark, Lakota Sioux Chief, 1887. The right to life, autonomy, and equal respect are three of the most basic components of the theological concept of human dignity. Without life, no person can possess dignity or exercise rights. These three components, reflected in a multitude of manners in religious scriptures and traditions, are really the basis of human rights as we understand them today. Hinduism and Women's Rights, A Dowry of Knowledge by Mira Khanna. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. The Talmud. Whichever path leads to justice is part of Islam and can never oppose it. Ibn al-Qayyim.
Many work on the front lines caring for COVID-19 patients. For one group, the virus is taking an outsized toll on people of Filipino ancestry. They make up 1% of the U.S. population, but more than 7% of the nation's healthcare workforce. And according to ProPublica, 1 in 4 Filipino adults in the New York, New Jersey area works in the medical field. Elaine Quijano shows us how the community of caretakers is coping.
As my sister-in-law was saying, we could probably build a hospital or a clinic by ourselves.
From nurses to therapists to doctors, Nina Batayola jokes there are so many healthcare workers in her family, they could fully staff their own hospital. Nina and her husband, Don Ryan Batayola, left the Philippines in 2007 to work as occupational therapists in the U.S. Then, in early March, they found themselves on the front lines of the pandemic.
And then in late March, he started to get sick.
I finally called the emergency 911 on him. He couldn't even drink water anymore.
Days later, Don Ryan was well enough to FaceTime from the hospital.
We were very hopeful. He looked much better. He didn't like the food. So I said, like, okay, think what you wanted to eat, call me back, and I'll have it delivered. He never got to call me back. That was it.
On April 4th, Don Ryan Batayola passed away in New Jersey at age 40.
We thank you for welcoming Don to thy gates in heaven.
His family paid their respects in an online service.
You were missed while you were gone.
He's one of more than 50 Filipino healthcare workers who have died from COVID-19 in the New York, New Jersey area alone, according to ProPublica reporter Nina Martin.
In 1898, the Philippines, which had been a colony of Spain, became a territory of the United States. It became one of the places that the U.S. saw fit to exploit labor from. They basically created a workforce that has turned the Philippines into the largest exporter of nurses in the world.
Many Filipino American healthcare professionals work at the bedside or in critical care, the kinds of jobs that make you most vulnerable in a pandemic. Filipino American nurse Jem Scorp works in the ICU at Elmhurst Hospital in Queens, New York, once the epicenter of the epicenter.
Have you been there in some people's final moments?
Exactly. I have a COVID patient. The wife was calling. So, of course, nobody will touch the patient. So I told the wife, I'm not seeing my wife. I'm not seeing my son. So this husband of yours right now is my family.
For months, he stayed at a hotel so he could keep working without infecting his wife and son. Family reunions looked like this.
It must be so difficult. I can't imagine being separated.
It is. It's not easy. Emotionally, it is.
Nursing was Jem Scorp's path to the American dream. For Nina Batayola and her 2 children, Erica and Enrico, that dream endures.
Even in this painful moment, do you see an American dream for them?
Yes. Yes. I have a dream for them. It might not be the same American dream that I had before.
Our first speaker of the night is Maria Cervania. Maria will talk about healthcare and how Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will defeat the COVID-19 pandemic. Maria?
Hello, my name is Maria Cervania, and I'm from Cary, North Carolina. I am honored to have been selected as one of the co-state directors for Filipino Americans for Biden-Harris, and also humbled to have received your Democratic nomination for Wake County Commissioner. If elected in November, I will be the first Filipino American to serve in Wake County and possibly in North Carolina. Professionally, I'm an epidemiologist and biostatistician, and pertinent to these times, I've worked in planning and crisis management during the H1N1 avian flu pandemic. The difference between then and now is that President Obama and Vice President Biden committed to federal financial and resource support to state and local governments. And because of this, the avian flu did not escalate at the same magnitude as COVID-19. Now we have a national problem with no national strategy and no national response. The Trump administration failed to provide leadership at every turn whether it was lack of essential supplies for Filipino American frontline health workers, the failure to articulate clear, consistent national policy when it comes to testing and the use of masks, or simply ignoring the professional guidance offered by the members of his own COVID-19 task force. And the result, 6.5 million Americans are infected, and over 194,000 of our family, friends, and neighbors have died. And yes, many include Filipino American frontline health workers. How do we come to this? A virus 1,000 times smaller than a dust mite has humbled and humiliated the planet's most powerful nation. America has failed to protect its people, leaving them with illness and financial ruin. America has lost its status as a global leader and is careened between inaction and ineptitude. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will already be on it on day one to protect the country's health and well-being. And they will not wait to communicate their views on what must be done now to properly serve America and its people. They have a 7-point plan to beat COVID-19 and get our country back on track. The 7-point plan includes 1, fix Trump's testing and tracing fiasco to ensure all Americans have reliable, regular, and free testing. 2, they will fix the personal protective equipment problems for good. 3, they will provide clear, consistent, evidence-based national guidance for how communities should navigate through this pandemic. And that'll include resources for schools, small businesses, and families to make it through. 4, they will have a plan for the effective, equitable distribution of treatments and vaccines. 5, they will protect older Americans and others at high risk. 6, they will rebuild and expand the defenses that Trump has dismantled to predict, prevent, and mitigate pandemic threats. And lastly, 7, they will implement a mask mandate nationwide by working with governors and mayors and by asking the American people to do what they do best, step up in times of crisis. Experts have said that if 95% of Americans wear masks between now and December, we can save almost 70,000 lives. Honestly, the good news is that no matter how bad things get and how devastating the effects of Trump's failure is to lead, come November, you, your family, and other Filipino Americans can show what leadership really looks like by voting. Voting is still a vaccine that can protect against the virus of bad government. Please let's work together to get out the vote and make sure that we get a victory for Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Our next speaker is Dr. Francis de los Reyes. Dr. de los Reyes is a North Carolina State University professor and scholar. Dr. de los Reyes will be talking about immigration. Doctor?
Thanks, Kayla. As Kayla mentioned, I'm a professor of environmental engineering at NC State. But 28 years ago, I was just a poor grad student, fresh off a plane from the Philippines, starting out to do graduate school in Ames, Iowa. The beauty and wonder of this amazing experiment in democracy called the United States of America is that someone like me with only 2 suitcases of clothes and books and I think $200 in my pocket, but with ambition and drive and dreams, can be a tenured professor in one of the nation's top state universities. This is the original strength of the USA, along with the ideals of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The possibility of people from all over the world with their dreams and aspirations to create a better life for themselves and their families, and in the process enrich American society. This is the promise of America, as expressed on the plaque at the latest foot. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Emma Lazarus speaks of hospitality, of welcoming, not of building walls and isolationism. The tired, the poor are welcomed not because they are the current successful businessmen and elite, but because it is in America's DNA to welcome immigrants and the diversity they represent, not because they are tenured professors, but because they were once poor students with their dreams. True story. When Mia, our first child, was born, my wife and I were poor grad students. We owed $400 to the Mary Greeley Hospital in Ames, Iowa. We tried to pay that bill, $20 a month. We were so poor that my wife and Mia were on WIC, the Women, Infants, Children program, to help supplement our food resources. Well, that child is now a PhD candidate at Caltech. And I'd like to think that the taxes that my wife and I have paid over the past decades have more than covered the benefits that we received then. That social net was what we needed then. When we welcome immigrants, when we embrace dreamers and doers yearning for a better life, we enrich society. Those of us Filipino Americans who have seen some success here in this land of opportunity should never forget where we came from. We who are fortunate should never succumb to what we call in Tagalog, utak talangka, or crab mentality, pulling down others, trying to make life better for themselves and their families. Because this is what a wall does. It prevents others from opportunities that we had. It's like pulling the ladder so that others cannot climb over. That's not the USA that I know, and that is not the path to a future America. Electing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is the first step to healing our society and realizing that immigration is a super strength of the USA. Joe Biden is for immigration reform that is modern, that will support family based immigration, and preserves family unification. Our country will stop putting children in cages and separating them from their parents because they are brown. Our country will stop being afraid of the other. Unless your ancestors are Native American, you can trace your ancestry to immigrants. If you are Scottish or German or Polish or Irish or Chinese or Japanese, pick any country of origin. Your ancestors were also once shunned. They were once the other. If you have Filipino blood, you or your ancestors were immigrants. I am an immigrant. My family is here because I believe in the promise of America, that we all have a place in this great experiment of democracy, that we can make our lives and the lives of others in this society better. What we need is to turn away from know-nothing isolationist policies, such as putting up expensive walls that don't work and only serve to divide us. We need to turn away from cruel policies that only serve to feed our most base fears and emotions. What we need is sound immigration policy that's based on facts and data, that sees immigration as the strength of our society and powers our economy and reflects our values as a nation. We need to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, real leaders who will work for real solutions. We need to reassert who we are as a nation, a welcoming, hospitable, progressive society. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. De Los Reyes. Trump is building his wall, just not the one that he promised. Take a look at this. Wow, that was tough to watch. That video was from the Lincoln Project. Our next speaker is Dr. Gracie Galloway. Dr. Galloway is the chair of the North Carolina AAPI caucus. She will be discussing the importance of voting for the Democrats in November. Dr. Galloway?
Okay, I'm doing this live because the video that I made somehow got lost. First of all, I'm terribly honored to be here with an amazing group of people. David and Shelley, thank you for your entertainment. Maria, as usual, you rock the dang house. Professor De La Rias, thank you so much for your words of inspiration. I'm here to talk to you about the importance of voting. But before I can really express to you how passionate I am about the fact that every vote counts and that every single person in these United States must vote, I need to tell you a little bit about me. I went to Vietnam in 1967 as a very young person. I was a teenager at the time. And I went there as a volunteer. Now, all women that went to Vietnam were volunteers. We were in the, women were in the Army, in the Air Force and Navy, but every woman that went to Vietnam during the conflict was a volunteer. And my job in Vietnam was to work with the Catholic Sisters of Charity, with the refugee, refugees, with the war orphans and the children of rape. And very often the children of rape, the rape victims were children themselves. So that left a very searing and made a tremendous impact on me and who I am and how I feel. And I thank God every day that I have this ability to speak to people and to live and to be, to contribute to society. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of voting, how important it is. Well, let's discuss a little bit about, the Vietnam War, any war that came afterwards, and how even one vote could have stopped a war. Or alternatively, how the votes that voted in a president helped stop a world war. So let's talk about, Herbert Hoover in the Great Depression, who is a Republican. He gave us the Great Depression. Who took his place was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a Democrat. Franklin Delano Roosevelt not only helped us win World War II, but he also instituted the Social Security that many of us here rely on every month. Let's follow that up with another Democratic president, Lyndon Baines Johnson. While, yes, I know he was awful as far as Vietnam is concerned, he did, however, redeem himself by passing Medicare, Medicaid, and the Civil Rights Amendment. So think about those three things that make our country, right now we call them the three legs of the stool. Those three things are absolutely integral to our society, to us getting old with grace, to us having some kind of health care when we get older, and to the difference between, for many people, starvation and life. Let's talk about Bush v. Gore. Bush won Florida by 531 votes, 531 votes. And because we had President Bush, here's what we got. Here's what he bequeathed us. He bequeathed us Iraq and Afghanistan, two endless wars. That's what he bequeathed us. Had we gotten Gore, Al Gore, what we would have got was climate change. What we would have gotten is a president who believed in climate change, who would promote it. That's what we would have gotten. But instead, we got George W. Bush. And because George W. Bush also brought with him Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz, Rumsfeld, Cheney, Scooter Libby, Bolton. He brought with him the war hawks that set our country on an absolute downward spiral in terms of war. We've lost $2 trillion by the time they were done with us. $2 trillion of our treasure. More importantly, we lost over 5,000 of our more valuable treasure, and that is of our young men and women who were killed. That is not counting the tens of thousands of American young men and women, many of them Asian American Pacific Islanders, many of them Asian American Pacific Islanders, let me repeat that, who lost arms and legs, suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, and to this very day, we have veterans that live under a bridge who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. Our suicide rate among our veterans is so ridiculously high. We have over 100,000 deaths from suicide from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Those sorts of travesties I lay at the feet of the person who is in the White House. And it is the same thing that I do now. The deaths of our people who died from COVID-19, close to 200,000, I lay squarely in the lap of Donald J. Trump. Over 6.5 million people who were infected with this virus, I lay in the lap of Donald J. Trump. What he would have us do is develop herd immunity, which would mean that we would have to have over 200 million people get infected. And if you go by the most conservative numbers, out of over 200 million people, 231 million people become infected. If you go by the most conservative numbers of deaths, that would mean over 2 million people dying from COVID-19. That's the sort of thing that when I keeps me up at night. I think about, why do I tell people to vote? How do I get people to understand that it is important? Your vote does count. Every single one vote does count. And I think about all these deaths, and I say to myself, all right, let's really parse it down now. Roy Cooper won North Carolina by 10,000 votes. Barack Obama won North Carolina by 14,000 votes. Donald Trump won North Carolina by a little over 100,000 votes. Do you know what that translates to? 15 votes per precinct. 15 votes per precinct. If we can increase our voting participation by 16 votes per precinct, we win. 16 votes per precinct. We can do this. If we have 16 votes per precinct, we get Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, a decent man, an intelligent woman with a heart of gold in the White House, and we can set America back on the track that it was bound to be. We can become that shining light on the hill once again. It is so important. I cannot express how important it is to vote. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Galloway. Election 2020 has created an excitement and buzz, and the Asian American community has been involved in the organization.
Hi, my name is Kevin Lin. I'm 16 years old and I'm Chinese American. My parents immigrated from China more than 2 decades ago to chase their American dream. I am making this video today to ask for your help. I am too young to vote in this upcoming November election, but it's still very important to me, for my own future, and for my generation's future. Please register to vote in this upcoming November election. Please vote like your life depends on it. Thank you.
I'm Abia. I'm 16 years old, and I need you to vote like your life depends on it, because it does. Aapki zindagi is par munasir hai. Thank you. Be the upper and take every moment anew, just like a pupper.
像你的生活一样要投票。
Hi, my name is Abigail and I'm 17 years old. Bumoto tulad mo, buhay nakasalalay dito.
Grind with the bread for when the cookies don't crumble. Appreciate the light when it shines, but yeah, you also need.
Hi, I'm Anna and I'm 16 years old. Feeling 육국성, 부투억 반어, if you're still considering so.
Just part of the struggle. Part of the struggle.
당신의 삶이 달려 있습니다. 투표하십시오.
Perfect imperfection, like I chose, yeah, cross chose me. Say come down like I'm still here.
Vote to save our future.
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 On the inside, I'll leave this here, been waiting a long time. Outside the door, might well get used to it. Outside the door.
Thank you to all of our young AAPIs for being so active. Our next speaker is Hector Javier. He is one of the co-directors for the Filipino Americans for Biden-Harris. Hector will talk about the pro-life Catholic perspective. Hector?
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to go over with you all some talking points that you can use when explaining how Joe Biden's vision for America is pro-life and faith-inspired when engaging in conversations with our friends and colleagues. Now, why are we talking about this pro-choice versus pro-life conversation? Well, there's plenty of anecdotal evidence that the pro-choice plank of the Democratic Party is an understandably problematic issue for people of faith, especially Filipinos who are by and large Catholic or Christian. There is a misleading narrative that voting for Biden is somehow inconsistent with being Catholic or Christian because of the pro-choice versus pro-life debate. However, the pro-choice versus pro-life dichotomy is arguably simplistic. The pro-life ethic is more complex, nuanced, and covers multiple interconnected social justice issues in which the current administration has been found woefully lacking, including areas like healthcare, poverty, racism, climate, and immigration. True pro-life means womb-to-tomb care for all of human life, and especially includes solidarity with the marginalized. Discerning the wider call to be pro-life means that Catholics are mature moral agents who must consider the Gospels and church teachings on a wide variety of issues, and then use their consciences to make an informed decision. We must remember that the church does not endorse any particular candidate or political party, but instead calls on church members to use their individual consciences to make an informed decision. The seamless garment or consistent life ethic argues that all threats to human life and human dignity are interrelated, and that these cannot be collapsed into just one thread or topic. Pope Francis himself has focused the church on bringing compassion, mercy, outreach to the poor, inclusion of the marginalized, and care for creation. These are all important to Catholic social teaching. A consistent life ethic also recognizes that a just economy and responsibly funded safety net that cares for women, workers, families, minorities, the poor, the marginalized brings down abortion rates. Joe's vision for America actually advances the priorities of Catholic social teaching, to name just a few. Building an economy where we protect the least of these and help families and children overcome poverty and inequality. Respect the dignity of workers and the rights of workers. Advancing human life and dignity by ensuring affordable quality healthcare as a right for everyone. Pursuing a humane immigration policy that keeps families together, offers a path to citizenship, treats all workers fairly, strengthens our economy, secures our borders, and respects the inherent human dignity of immigrants and refugees. Serving as stewards of creation and of the common good protecting our planet against climate change. These are all priorities for Joe Biden's platform. We must remember that Joe Biden's Catholic faith and proven character are important considerations when choosing someone to vote for. Joe's devout faith background and character are needed for national leadership. He listens, is inclusive, acknowledges the moral complexity of the real world, and does not foment divisiveness. Character is on the ballot in November. Joe Biden's proven empathy and compassion, rooted in his Catholic faith, is needed in the White House in these turbulent times. Lastly, I leave you with the words of Pope Francis in his 2018 Apostolic Exhortation. He says, the defense of the innocent unborn, of course, needs to be clear, firm, and passionate. Equally sacred, however, are the lives of the poor, those already born, the destitute, the abandoned, the underprivileged, the vulnerable, infirm, all other marginalized groups, all of whom we need to take care of. Lastly, I'd invite you to read further on materials like Catholic social teaching, the guidelines on forming consciences and faithful citizenship of the Catholic bishops of the United States, as well as position papers from Catholics for Biden and Democrats for Life of America. And hopefully these discussion points will help you have respectful dialogues with members of our community so that we may all come to a rational, informed, faith-informed decision on who to vote for in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. North Carolina has one of the largest military footprints of any state in the country, with bases in both Jacksonville and Fayetteville, representing 3 out of the 4 branches of service. There are over 740,000 veterans living in our state. Next up, we have Air Force veteran Leanne Yap Black, who will talk to us about Joe Biden's vision for our military veterans. Leanne?
Hello, good evening. I am Leanne Carlisa Black. I am speaking to you from Cary, North Carolina. I am a 3rd-generation immigrant from Antipolo, Rizal, Philippines. I entered into the United States by way of Brunei Airlines to Los Angeles International Airport in 1999. I enlisted in the Air Force on February 2000. I welcome the opportunity to tell you why Joe Biden would make the best candidate as the President of the United States, a leader of the U.S. military, and an advocate for military veterans. Joe Biden fought aggressively for our service members and veterans throughout his career in public service for over 4 decades. As a senator, he was an early advocate for Vietnam veterans who were exposed to Agent Orange to gain access to health care benefits they deserve. He also fought to expand housing benefits for all U.S. veterans. During his tenure in the U.S. Senate, Biden led the way on critical issues to protect the health of our military, most notably driving the fight to increase funding for up-armored mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, also known as MRAPs, by $23.6 billion, which saved thousands of lives and limbs of U.S. service members in Iraq and Afghanistan. In addition, he championed funding for prosthetics, proper burial allowances, retirement and disability pay for all veterans, as well as mammogram coverage for female veterans. The Obama-Biden administration accomplished major milestones, including cutting the population of homeless veterans by almost half and reducing the unemployment rate for veterans by more than half. In 2013, when an unacceptable backlog of veterans' disability claims was uncovered at the VA, the Obama-Biden administration took aggressive action to rectify the failures and ultimately reduce the backlog by nearly 90% in just over 3 years. During the Obama-Biden administration, the VA also led in creating the Blue Button. It's an app to help veterans access their health data and medical records more easily. Today, Blue Button is used by more than 2 million veterans. As president, Biden will rebuild trust in the Department of Veterans Affairs as well as enhance the capacity of the VA to serve our veterans as efficiently as possible by overseeing a generational upgrade to clinical and management systems by leveraging commercial best practices and modern technologies to meet the unique demands of public sector mission. To support the VA mission, a Biden administration will ensure coordination with the Department of Defense, Department of Housing and Urban Development, state agencies, and other thousands of non-governmental organizations which are known to support this vital community. This work will faithfully restore public trust in the VA so that no one in the military community or beyond will ever doubt the United States of America for fulfilling its promises to those who serve our country. In addition to protecting and building on the Affordable Care Act with a public option to expand access to quality, affordable health care, and commitments to provide and expand rural hospital, including healthcare delivery models for rural areas, a Biden administration will establish cultural competency training protocols to ensure that providers in VA facilities and community care settings are well equipped and understand their responsibility to support the needs of LGBTQ veterans. Reverse the transgender military ban. Biden will conduct the U.S. Department of Defense to allow transgender service members to serve openly, receive needed medical treatment, and be free from discrimination. Reverse Department of Defense policies that perpetuate stigmatization of and discrimination against people living with HIV. Work with Congress to improve health services for women veterans. Biden will ensure that each VA medical center has at least one full-time women's primary care physician, make available a women veterans training module for community health care providers, and enact the Deborah Sampson Act so that the safety and privacy concerns of women veterans are addressed throughout his administration. Provide funding to ensure there is a safe, reliable childcare at all VA medical centers. Work with Congress to eliminate co-pays for preventive health care for veterans, which can create unnecessary barriers to seeking basic preventive care. Ensure that disabled veterans that require a prosthetics are able to access the most modern prosthetics technology available, and that they are able to upgrade their equipment at no cost as new developments occur. Protect undocumented members of our armed services veterans and their spouses from deportation. Modernize VA hospitals and clinics to serve our veterans through a nationwide infrastructure plan that provides a comprehensive refresh of VA health facilities. Thank you.
As a nation, we have a lot of obligations to the young, to the old, to all the poor, but there's no obligation that is truly sacred other than the commitment to our veterans. You are not only the heart and soul, but you are the very spine of this nation. And as a nation, we pause today to thank more than 23 million surviving veterans who have so bravely and faithfully protected our freedom.
Thank you, Leanne, and thank you for your service. Our final speaker of the night is Ed Benet. Ed is the NC State Co-Director for Filipino Americans for Joe Biden. Ed will wrap up this evening with a call to action, information about registering and voting, and working together to win this important election. After Ed's talk, we will conclude with a video of our United States national anthem and a rendition of Freddie Aguilar's song, Bayan Ko. Before I pass it off to him, I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. When we come together, we truly can create a future for all. Take it away, Ed.
Thank you, Kayla. In 2016, the morning after the election, I woke up and was stunned to learn that Trump won. I was so confident in 2016 that we will win that I went to bed early. I made a promise that day that I will work tirelessly to win back the White House. And the time has come for us to do just that. 46 days until Election Day. Not a lot of time, but I know that with your help, we can do it. You've heard the various speakers tonight about the well thought out plan that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris platform agenda, and really a bold vision of America, including an agenda for the Catholic community and the AAPI group. Please visit the website to learn more about it. Hector tonight eloquently outlined the case on why Catholics should vote for Joe Biden. We know of many Filipino Americans who are voting Republican because of one issue and one issue alone, which is abortion. Our hope is that we have given you the necessary talking points and reasons to talk about our kabayans about this. Unfortunately, we might not be able to convince them to vote for Joe, but so our focus then should be to talk to Phil-Ams or Phil-Americans who are undecided and have not voted in the past elections. In North Carolina, early voting starts on October the 15th and ends October 31st. Did you know that you can actually register and vote the same day? Well, during the early voting period in North Carolina, you can register and vote at the same day. Again, you can only do this from October the 15th to October 31st. So, what other areas do you think that we have to do to win back the White House? First, we need to make sure that you yourself is registered to vote. Check out iwillvote.com and all the information you need to check if A, you're registered to vote, B, information on how to vote by mail, and information about in-person voting in November. And if you're planning to mail in your ballot, please do it early. You can actually track your mail-in ballot by using ballot tracks. Ballot tracks brings transparency to the voter process so you know your vote has counted. Whether your preference is to receive a notification via text, email, or voice alert, Ballot Track lets you know where your vote is in real time. So check it out. The third thing that we have to do is to start contacting your friends and relatives. And please contact them through Facebook, text, or even call them and say, hey, have you registered? Please do that as soon as possible. Make a list of your friends and relatives and start calling the list. And the last thing you want to ask them also with your friends and relatives is please ask them to call their own friends and relatives to ensure that they will vote in November the 3rd. The fourth thing that we have to do, and I believe this is the hardest part, is to talk to our relatives about why they are voting for Trump. And the best way to do that is just go ahead and ask them questions and listen. Ask them questions like, why are you voting for Trump? Do you think he has been a good president? And is morality important to you? Is healthcare, immigration a big issue for you? Then after that, have a dialogue and don't be defensive. I know I do this all the time. Don't be defensive and angry or confrontational. Listen and say your talking points. Finally, please donate and volunteer. This is really important. If you can afford to donate, please donate to the Dems. Your gift will be put to use to defeat Trump. And volunteer and do phone banking, call people to vote. This will be one of the hardest things that you would do, but don't despair. We will train you and ensure that you will be comfortable calling people for support. We will provide the script and a list to call. So in the next couple of weeks, we will send you an email inviting you to volunteer to a Filipino American phonathon. Please say yes. When I arrived in the US from our homeland 45 plus years ago, I was a very proud immigrant. Like Francis de los Reyes earlier, I am the embodiment of an American immigrant in this country. Yet, like many Americans, I'm greatly disturbed by the direction our country has been heading. For the past 3.5 years, President Trump has attacked the very core of what America is all about, a land of hardworking individuals making our country the envy of the world. So we must elect Joe and Kamala to restore the soul of America. The time is now. Thank you all. And Kayla, thank you so much for being our MC. You did a phenomenal job. So may the wind always be at our backs and the sun upon our faces. And may the wings of destiny carry us aloft to dance with the stars in November. Go Kamala, go Joe, and let's win this election.
Ang bayan kong Pilipinas, lupain ng ginto't bulaklak, pag-ibig na sa kanyang palad, nag-alay ng ganda't dilag, at sa kanyang yumi at ganda, dayuhan ay nahalina. Bayan ko, binihag ka, nasadlak sa dusa. Ibon mang may layang lumipad, kulungin mo at umiiyak. Bayan pa kayang sakdal dilag, ang di magnasang makaalpas. Pilipinas kong minumutya, pugad ng luha at kalita, aking adhika, makita kang sakdal laya.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight's last gleaming? Whose bright and bright stars through the perilous ride, for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. Together